Okay, so you're now at the most interesting part of the session, but before we begin that, I wanted to recognize that this whole production is the masterpiece of Dr. Ganesh, and a special round of applause for him, please. For those of you who looked at the website and studied the program before you came here, you might remember that we're supposed to discuss all of this in the context of what should happen at the IITs or be done for or by the IITs, and I'll read you this section from the website talking about the lead questions. And the diagnostic question is, what are the factors that have supported or encouraged innovation and entrepreneurship among students, faculty, and alumni of the IITs? And you'll see that the speakers have addressed some of those issues. I would especially welcome questions around this subject. In terms of the prognosis, we'd like to talk about education programs, support policies, systems and research, what role should be played by the IITs to promote innovation and entrepreneurship among the ecosystem, students, faculty, alumni. In what ways can IITs engage and benefit from partnerships and networking with a variety of organizations, whether they be businesses, whether they be government agencies or NGOs, all of this, of course, to promote innovation and entrepreneurship. And finally, what should be the IIT's advocacy initiatives and efforts for creating a fertile and vibrant environment for innovation and entrepreneurship to flourish. You've heard quite a range of opinions and experiences from our keynote speakers as well as our panelists. And what I'm going to try and do, rather than attempt to summarize their wisdom, which I think is beyond my intellectual capacity, what I am going to try and do is jump directly into the question and answer phase. And a couple of you sent in questions by email. So let's start with one of those. And the first is a question for Anu. The writer is Deepak Gopinath, IIT Madras, Mechanical, 1976. Is he here? No?
98. Yeah, it says 98.
Oh, it says 1976. Yeah, but we'll take 98. Okay. You don't look like 1976 to me. Okay. And the question is, what are the prospects for India to develop world-class bio companies, biotechnology companies? What are the necessary requirements?
There's a related question, so perhaps Anu could answer that. This is a question from Radhika Sridhar. Biotech was expected to become a boom industry as big as IT. In short, it doesn't seem to have grown, so does it lack support for innovation? That's the question. So Anu, you could probably combine the two questions.
Okay, sure. I think we've heard this as big as IT story many times, and I think those came up with all the people who create numbers. I think if you just look at why that should be the case, it never should have been starting from the beginning, because biotech is a subset of what the IT industry could do, and it was said that bioinformatics, which is just a subset of IT, was going to be as big as IT. So that was kind of faulty from the beginning. I think they're all, like all industries, when it started, there was a huge amount of hype in it. I think it was in the year 2000, 2001, around the time when we started. There were about many companies that started with us. The question is that it doesn't support the lack of innovation. I think there is, right now in India, we don't have the right ecosystem for it, but that doesn't stop us from being able to create that kind of company. I think there are many ways to get about it. If there are no standard traditional ways, you innovate and you figure out ways to create that. And I think there are two things. There's definitely the component of entrepreneurship, where you actually start thinking of an idea, you start thinking of, like we did, where we just started. I didn't come from a life science industry or anything. We just came, we started, we had a good idea. But I think beyond that, beyond the entrepreneurship phase of what your company can create, once you create a model that can work, you also need the ecosystem for financing and for future prospects, because eventually you need to create critical mass. And you also need to create the right kind of management skills to be able to create a world-class company. And I think even in the last 8 years of that we've undergone, I personally am a very different person from what I was 8 years ago, because we started as being an entrepreneur, being someone who was a clerk, who was who did everything in the company, to now being able to delegate, to being able to delegate a lot of the responsibility to your team, as well as to be able to look at more strategic ways of how do you grow this company, not just on a day-to-day basis, but can you look at it from a larger, bigger vision perspective, and then make sure that you develop or successively develop layers of people below you that can actually start taking on the responsibilities that we were doing before. So in terms of creating a global biotech, world-class company in India, it is definitely possible. We need certain elements for it to succeed, and I think if we try hard enough, we'll find those. It might not be obvious, and it might not be many companies, but there will be one or two that will be able to differentiate, and once those one or two differentiate, you'll find more that will follow. So I hope I answered your question. If not, let me know.
Thank you, Anu. Okay. So one of the backdrop questions I think we should be thinking about is, can IITians innovate? And are IITians innovating in India? Are they innovating overseas? I'm sure some of you have thought about those questions, and the answers vary all over the place, right? On one side, we can be very proud of the things that have happened. On the other side, we wonder, right? If you look at the production of research papers from the IITs and you compare with other universities, the numbers don't look that great, right? But, as I tell my students at Caltech who take my Business with India class, that the Tata Nano is probably the most innovative thing that happened in the automobile business in a long, long time. And it's not just the low price of the car. You look at the design features, you look at the aluminum die-cast engine, you look at the wheels located at the ends, at the four ends of the car, you look at the single wiper, and a whole slew of innovations that have gone into creating that car. And of course, many IIT alumni were involved in the design process for that car. You'll be hearing from the CEO of Tata Motors, I think, on Sunday. There's a tremendous amount of innovation happening in India, and it's not all coming from the technological side. You look at the Dabbawalas of Mumbai, I think that's a tremendous innovation.